we were able to do is create what we've called the Rapid Response Artist Relief Fund.
Hi all, welcome to a special episode of Catamoments. This episode features Amy Cunningham of the Vermont Arts Council. I invited Amy to come on the show and tell me all about the funding that is available to artists right now through the Vermont Arts Council and their partners. And here's that interview. Welcome, Amy. Thank you for joining me.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So the first thing I like to ask, regardless of what my guest does, is how are you doing personally right now?
Well, I am feeling very fortunate to have a safe house, and we're all healthy. I think I've never been more grateful for a little bit of an early spring. So I'm finding a lot of solace in thinking about my garden and clearing out some beds from the winter. And I've kind of set up this new home office on our sun porch so I can look right out in my backyard and see birds and neighborhood cats and all of that. So I'm feeling very lucky and fortunate. Everyone is healthy in my home, and my dog is incredibly happy to have me here all the time. She doesn't know what's going on, but she's happy about it.
Yeah, they're like, this is great. Yeah, life has certainly slowed down, watching outside your sun porch, watching the birds and the cats walking by. I live right on Main Street in Bradford, and I get to watch folks walk by with their dogs and kids riding bikes. And so there is a bit of solace in that piece of having to watch life kind of slow down amid all of the stresses that it entails as well, which is what we want to focus on today. So you are the Deputy Director at the Vermont Arts Council, and the Arts Council is committed to supporting Vermont artists and cultural organizations by making sure that everyone has access to the arts. And so could you just talk about briefly what you do for the Arts Council?
Yes, so excuse me. Part of my work, there's two main lanes for my work, and part of what I get to do is coordinate our programs and grants team. So the way we fulfill our mission, a big way that we fulfill our mission is through grant making. And so we have, in a typical year, 9 to 10 different grant programs. And there are programs that are specifically K-12 education focused. There are grant programs for individual artists. There are grant programs for arts projects to happen either by an arts organization or by other organizations. And then we have operating support for arts organizations. And then we also do some really interesting capital improvements and public art work. So encouraging municipalities and other organizations to do projects to animate and uplift their communities with public art. So I work with an amazing team of 4 other folks who run these different grant programs. A substantial portion of that too is arts residencies in schools and some educational programming, including our Poetry Out Loud contest. I'm saying all this because this is among the things that I'm really missing and being really aware that these, like, spring is the time when these when a lot of artist residencies happen in schools. This is the time, actually, we would typically be going to Washington, D.C. right now with a student from Vermont who is the finalist in Poetry Out Loud for that National Poetry Out Loud contest, which is just such a beautiful and inspiring event. And, like everything else in the world, that's been put on pause. They are going to do a virtual version of the Poetry Out Loud finals. Anyway, that's a little bit of a tangent, but there's a broad range of different kinds of programs that we get to support and lift up, and everybody is pivoting and pausing and figuring out what comes next. I'll mention the other lane of my work has to do with this network that we formed that Catamoment Arts has been really active in, the Vermont Creative Network. And that's about taking a broader look at the creative sector as a whole. So we've got artists and arts organizations at the heart of it. But we also have commercial creative businesses and specialty foods and film and media and cultural organizations like libraries and local historical societies that all make up the creative fabric of our state. And so we've formed that network in order to make this broader collaboration. So obviously, the sector as a whole, along with all the other sectors, are really facing unprecedented challenges in this last month.
The creative sector and looking at it as a system, I think, is so important. It's such good work that's happening. And just as the creative sector is a system, it is intertwined with all of the other systems. So it's nothing, it's not separate from anything else that's going on in the world. And so the work is, it's been wanting to be done. And so thank you for that. And lamenting about the Poetry Out Loud student not going to Washington, D.C., you're highlighting the fact that artists right now, the young poets, the bands, the painters, the sculptors, all of those folks that might be in residence somewhere or designing their tours right now are in a pause. And that pause for them is detrimental. And so I know that the Vermont Arts Council is working to support these folks. And so I'm wondering if you can speak directly to the independent artists out there who have lost all of their gigs for the foreseeable future, what they can do through the Vermont Arts Council to help them get through this period.
Yeah, just echoing your sentiment, it is, so many people have had just their livelihoods and their life's work ripped out from under them in the last couple of weeks. So just acknowledging how intense that is. And so what we were able to do is create what we've called the Rapid Response Artist Relief Fund. And we scrambled back in March, and March feels like forever ago, but we scrambled back in mid-March, early March, I guess, to identify some funds that we had available quickly to devote to that. And so we opened that program up March 25th and closed it March 31st temporarily. And so in that first wave, we funded 163 artists with about $64,000, got that out the door really quickly, and then took a breath, figured out where we could find more funding, found the New England Foundation for the Arts, which is our regional arts organization, very kindly distributed some of their reserve funds, their board reserve funds, quickly out to all of the state arts agencies. So that added to that pool. And we also, we took a breath and we refined that application, tried to make it really as straightforward and streamlined as possible. And we reopened it on Wednesday, the 22nd of April. So it is open now. It will be open until May 13th. We encourage, it is open to any artist or creative, and it is for lost gigs or lost work, and that includes lost work that supports your artistic endeavors. So it's not, you don't have to have lost a gallery show was canceled or gigs were canceled. That we're seeing a lot of that, but it's also acceptable that your creative practice has been interrupted because your job that supports that creative practice is now gone. So we tried to cast the net really widely. As you can imagine, unfortunately, the demand far outstrips the pot we have available. So we're really focused on getting the money out as quickly as possible to as many people as possible. So that is, again, it's called the Rapid Response Artist Relief Program. It's quick grants up to $500 for any artist or creative who's been impacted by the coronavirus and all of the closures. And that's right on our website. We've created, anybody who goes to our website, vermontartscouncil.org, will see a big COVID section that's quite prominent on the rotator and on the menu, and that Rapid Response Artist Relief Fund is there prominently. Again, we tried to make it a really quick application, and we're certainly all available, all working from home, and very happy to talk anybody through or answer any questions anybody has on those grants.
Yeah, and I think a good point to make is having patience and if you think, or if you have a question, please ask, because nobody had anticipated this. And so if there is a question on behalf of artists to the Vermont Arts Council, that they should ask.
Absolutely. And we're all, yeah, we're all thankful to be working, and we're all very available by email or phone.
Excellent. And then I have a quick question about federal funding.
Yeah.
I was just wondering what, all this stuff is so confusing and so huge, but there is mention of federal funding that is coming in the future. Could you speak about that?
Yes, and I'm happy to say that it's actually, a lot of it's here. So the CARES Act was passed in late March, and that included a couple of lanes of funding that folks in the arts world should know about. First and foremost, it included $75 million each to the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Endowment for the Humanities. And part of that $75 million was a mandate that some of it go out to the states to be distributed. And so the Arts Council and then our partners, the State Humanities Council, Vermont Humanities, we each received an allotment, and we have access to those funds now. And so those funds are primarily intended for cultural organizations, for arts and humanities organizations. And thankfully, it's pretty broad. It's not, a lot of times federal funding is very specific grants that people, projects that people have to apply for. This money is really meant for general operating expenses. So salaries and facilities expenses, so that these organizations can stay viable. So when we get to that beautiful day that we can reopen the doors, that the people are there to do that. So so that money's available. We just opened that grant yesterday, and we decided, the Arts Council and the Humanities Council, we partner on a lot of things, and we decided that it would make the most sense to have one application, one process, keep it simple. And so we're calling it the Cultural Relief Grant. It's on both of our websites. We just opened it yesterday. It's operating grants, anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. Rolling process. We're going to be reviewing them weekly. And so any organization, any 501c3 organization that does any kind of arts and humanities programming that has experienced losses should take a look at those guidelines. So that's the primary CARES Act federal funding for the arts and cultural sector. But I'll also mention that we were really heartened to see that from the beginning, all of the federal relief money being made available to small businesses has included nonprofit organizations. It's my understanding that hasn't always been the case in past federal stimulus packages, but it is the case now. And so, and I know the payroll protection program and many of those other programs are not without their difficulties and troubles, but it is good news. And I do know of some arts organizations in the state that have been approved for that PPP program. So that money is available for nonprofits. They talk about small business, and I think nonprofit organizations don't always know that they are in that definition of small business for the purposes of these funds. And folks should know, let's see, today's Friday. I think it was last night that Congress added more money to that PPP program. So applications are reopening. And that, again, the key message is that that money is available for nonprofit organizations. And then the other thing that's a real game changer for the creative sector, that again is not without its difficulties, but the CARES Act provided funding for all of the states to implement what is called the PUA, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, I believe is what it stands for. And so this is that mechanism through which self-employed independent contractors, freelancers can get access to unemployment benefits, which is new and a big deal. And our state Department of Labor, like all of the other states, are having to create a brand new system in order to process that. And that system has opened as of this week, but I understand they're still facing a pretty extreme backlog and some difficulties with it. But it is there. I've also been made aware that my understanding is that once people get in the system, that the funding will be, their unemployment benefits will be retroactive. So that's a very long-winded answer to what I know about how the CARES Act is trickling down in ways to Vermont.
No, I really appreciate that answer. With all of the acronyms, PPP, PUA, I can't even, I can't keep track.
That's soup. Yep.
And, I work in the field. So having the Vermont Arts Council available to artists and, small cultural organizations and, larger ones too, having you there to answer these questions is going to be key. Because I think the overwhelming information and the overwhelming news of today it's just really hard to take care of yourself, take care of your people without having this support. So on behalf of myself, Catamoment Arts, we want to thank you at the Vermont Arts Council for making this easier to navigate, and just keep up the good work. And one last thing before we go, I know that there is a way for folks to donate to the fund, so that all the funds don't need to come from the federal government or all these things, but people, just regular old people, can donate. How can they do that?
Yeah, if people are able to give, we are accepting donations for that Rapid Response Artist Relief Fund. So when you visit the page that has the application, you'll also see a link. So if folks are able to add to that pot, boy, we'd be very grateful. And then additionally, we have a new collaboration with the Vermont Community Foundation, and they have set up what we're calling the Arts Recovery Fund. And that's a little broader pool that we will distribute through to artists and to cultural organizations. So if folks are able to give and want to be thinking about how we can support artists and the arts organizations so that when the time comes, we can all be together again and in concerts and in performances and enjoying art in galleries, those are great ways to contribute.
Thank you so much, Amy, for joining me. This has been just a wonderful way to get all this information by talking to you directly, even though we're in our two little Zoom boxes. I'm just so grateful. So thank you so much, and hope to see you somewhere in an audience.
In real life, yes, at Dog Mountain. I can't wait.
Yeah,
maybe, hopefully. Yeah,
we're doing a lot of this lately.
Yeah. Right. Thanks for all you do.
And thank you to you.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Amy, for joining me on Catamoments. We will have her back again, where we will answer any more questions or give out any more information as it comes along. And if you have any questions in the meantime, do not hesitate to reach out to the Vermont Arts Council. Thank you so much again for joining me, and we'll see you next time on Catamoments. Bye.